And look, we got guests in the studio.
Yes.
Special guests.
Special guest in the building right now.
Hey.
Special guest in the building. I am happy to be joined by Nadia Johnson, the CEO of Milky Way Tech Hub. Powerful. Very powerful.
Hey.
And
The legend.
The legendary, the famous astrophysicist. All right. Somebody who honestly, I wouldn't be who I am today without. We have on the lines right now, Truth Nation, as I told y'all, Dr.Neil Degrasse Tyson. Dr. Tyson, how are you?
Hello.
Hey, what's happening
Hello.
Feeling good. And I love any guest who works for something called Milky Way. Okay.
Okay.
Well, you should get to know Nadia Johnson a lot more, Dr. Tyson. I mean, when you talk about being here in Wisconsin, she leads all of tech here.
She's the tech queen.
She's the tech queen. She's a Wisconsin delegate for those types of things. So I had to bring her in here to talk to you.
Yes.
And it's also her birthday, as I say her show.
Happy birthday to
Yes.
you.
What an incredible birthday. It's such an honor to be able
So
to
how many
speak with
times
you.
around the sun have you been?
I'm telling folks, this is my Jesus year. Do you know what that means? 33?
Yeah.
33.
Well, he died at 30. Yeah,
Christ
33,
year.
yeah.
Your Christ year.
It's my Christ year. Okay.
Christ conscious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, just don't get crucified, okay? We'll keep you on earth.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
So did he.
funny.
He tried, you know.
That's so funny. So, Dr. Tyson, tonight you are in
Please call me Neil.
Milwaukee.
You call me Neil.
I can call you
I'm cool
Neil.
with that.
All right, cool, Neil.
Let's do it.
All right, my blurred excitement just went that much higher.
Let's blur it out right
Let's
here
blur
and
it
now.
out. That's what we're gonna do. So, Neil, you're actually here in Milwaukee tonight at the Riverside
Yes.
Theater. What brings you here in town?
I was invited. So I'm at my home minding my own business.
Okay.
And but I have a speaking manager who dangles options in front of theaters across the country, and I can give any one of a dozen talks, and they're given the list and they pick one, and so then they invite me, and then I show up and give the talk that they picked. So I see myself as a servant of the public's curiosity in that capacity. And the talk of the dozen that they picked it's an easy one to pick. It's called "This Just In: The Latest Discoveries in the Universe," and of which there are always very many. So I'm looking forward to delivering that tonight. There are like 8 seats left or something. No, I don't know. I think
almost sold out.
There's a few seats left if anybody's interested, for sure.
Okay.
That is very interesting, Neil, because last time I remember when you were here, you were talking about movies and talking about the sci-fi inside of movies, what's real, what's actually possible. And this time around, it said I saw a video where you were going to be talking about, like you said, this just in the latest things in the universe, talking about planets, talking about aliens, those types of things. That's what we'll hear tonight.
Well, yeah, because it's been in the news.
Correct.
There have been hearings in Congress about aliens. We'll touch on that a little bit. Try to put a reality check on that. There's a possible signs of life on an exoplanet.
Correct.
There's a biosignatures. That's what we call it. If there's life on the surface, which you can't see directly, it's too far away and too dim and too small. But if it changes the gas mixture in the atmosphere, and you can detect that with the James Webb Telescope, then it can hint that there could be biological activity happening on the surface. We'll talk about that. There's also been some issues in the early universe with the Big Bang. They call it Hubble tension, it's called in some circles. And some headlines are saying, cosmology will have to rethink it. A lot of that's exaggerated, but I'll put that in context for people to just get a reality check on it all.
Wow.
But you're right. In the previous year, I gave a talk on movies. It wasn't just sci-fi movies. There are a lot of movies that have science in them that either is on purpose or by accident. And I like pointing that out, especially if they got it right by accident.
Right,
Then
like
I
Interstellar.
give them a tip of the hat.
Now, they're sending a lot of people into the atmosphere lately. Do you believe in what's happening with Jeff Bezos and the women that went up into the stratosphere? What do you have to say about that? A lot of people are questioning that whole experience.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I've been asked, do I want to go into space like all of these other people who are lined up? But I'm an astrophysicist, so if you want to send me into space, I got to have a destination. And Instead of boldly going where hundreds have gone before, give me, moon, Mars, beyond. That's what I'm talking. And the Bezos trip, if Earth were the size of a schoolroom globe, you can ask yourself, how high above the globe do they go? They go the thickness of 2 dimes above the surface of a schoolroom globe. That's all. I'm saying that.
That gives us a really good perspective.
Okay, now they are above the principal layers of the atmosphere, so they're well above the stratosphere, as you might have hinted. So there's no blue sky above them because the blue sky is made by our atmosphere. So they're high enough to see the night sky in broad daylight. That's a fun transition to go as you ascend through the atmosphere, and they spend a few minutes being weightless. So that's worth something. I don't want to take that experience away from people, but as an astrophysicist, if you're going to ask me if I want to go into space, you got to send me farther away than 2 dimes. The women on that voyage took a lot of the people cast shade on that,
right?
And I responded on social media and I said, look, take this in context. When aviation was birthed, the first people to fly in airplanes were rich people and famous people. Right. Because they're the only ones who could afford it. And that brought media attention and investors and all that combination, those combinations of forces birthed the modern aviation industry. So you should expect that the first people on board these trips are famous or wealthy or both. And so I don't have any problems with it at all. And I'm friends with Gail. And I met Katy Perry. She was on my podcast a few years ago. and so in my tweet, I invited them. I welcomed them back to Earth. Gail, Katy, and the rest of the crew.
Very cool.
And these ladies, they were saying, they're astronauts now. And there were some folks that were saying, no, you're not an astronaut, but you believe they're astronauts, right?
Well, it's a matter of definition, and so they came up with a definition some years ago, before all of this happened. Okay, and the definition was ascend above what's called the Kármán line. There's Herman, I think his first name is Herman Kármán. He was a Hungarian American physicist who calculated that there would be an elevation above Earth where the atmosphere is so thin that would give hardly any air resistance if you moved through that level. And that came to be known as the Kármán line. And people said, well, astronauts go above the Kármán line. So anyone who does that is an astronaut. What we count as our first astronaut, Alan Shepard, not John Glenn. Alan Shepard is considered America's first astronaut. He did not go into orbit. Of course, he didn't go to the moon. He went above the Kármán line and fell back to Earth, just as everybody does today. So the difference is we are so good at it, you don't need to go through all the training of the right stuff and survive in the desert and go in a centrifuge. You don't need any of that because that's not going to happen to you on this trip.
Well, Neil, let me ask you this then, because there have been different advertisements out here talking about basically a year from now, NASA and other people out there, organizations, are looking to invent a space hotel, a hotel up in space. Those people going to space to get into that hotel, they would technically be astronauts then, right? And is that
anybody who, well, definitely, if you go into orbit, there's no question we're going to call you an astronaut. The fact that so many people are now taking tourist loops, the whole trip lasts, I forget, 15, 20 minutes, not even. So
it's like 11 minutes.
The definition was set up long ago, and you want to move the goalposts, I'm necessarily a fan of that. The rules were set, and and Bezos, Branson, not so much anymore, but even SpaceX will put you into orbit. All right, but you know how high orbit is? It's 1 centimeter above Earth's surface. Okay, that's where the space station is. Right. So I'm an astrophysicist. I think about the whole universe. Send me somewhere, and then we're talking. Oh, by the way, you want to put a hotel there? Okay, and be weightless. Everybody be weightless, unless you're going to put the hotel on the moon. All right, and if you're going to put it on the moon, you have weight, and so that's a little better. But then there's this old stale dad joke where if there's like hotels, if you have hotels and restaurants in the hotels, it would have a very interesting menu for the moon, but it would have no atmosphere.
Is the moon not made of cheese? That's what I was taught.
You know what, Chief Nation, right now we're talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson, the famous American astrophysicist. You know what, Neil, I wanted to ask you this question because me and Nadia, we were actually talking before we got on air. And I remember as a kid, Neil, we were taught that Pluto was the 9th planet. Somewhere along the timeline, all right, it got down to 8. And then about 2 months ago, I see that they said they found another planet here in the Milky Way galaxy. So with that being said, I want to ask you, Neil, what defines a planet as a planet? Like, because now Pluto is just considered a moon of Neptune.
So first, get over it. Okay.
Aw, come on.
I'm just saying.
Pluto.
You know, it's like. So let me start with that. Just get over it. All right. So second, the definition of a planet was it's got to be large enough to be spherical, which Pluto is, by the way. If you're small, then the structures of the rocks that comprise you are more have a bigger impact on your shape than gravity does. That's why small objects in the universe look like Idaho potatoes or craggy rocks.
Right.
Okay. So Pluto is round. However, it is amid countless thousands of other objects, many of whom are approximately its size, in a belt of objects that we now call the Kuiper belt that surround the sun. So Pluto was the first of the Kuiper belt objects, and we didn't know there was a Kuiper belt surrounding it, surrounding the sun that included it. Once we started making these discoveries in the early 90s, then we said, oh, Pluto, look, deal with it, Pluto. And by the way, Earth's moon has 5 times the mass of Pluto. Every Pluto lover I know did not know that. Okay? So they were withholding information from them to not give them the truth. And what's the name of your show? The Truth? There it is. So meanwhile, we are discovering planets orbiting outside of the solar system.
Well, Neil,
and that number... Yeah, the number's going up. It's rising through 6,000 right now. So we're cranking them out.
Neil, let me ask you this question because, as we were talking about belts and things of that nature, there is something called the Van Allen belt. All right. And with the Van Allen belt, some people would say because we have a Van Allen belt around the Earth, or some people would call it the firmament, we can't even leave Earth. Like, is there any truth to that, Neil?
No. Did you get that on the internet?
He's been going down the rabbit hole again. He's been going down the rabbit hole. Neil, this is our rabbit hole. Ben is our rabbit hole.
Watch those YouTube rabbit holes, dude. Take a reality check. So there is a Van Allen belt, and it traps high energy particles. It relates to Earth's magnetic field,
right?
And it's a zone that belts around the Earth. And if you move through it quickly, it's not a problem. Or if you exit Earth in a direction where it isn't, it's not a problem. We've been to the moon and back 9 times. And some of those astronauts are outliving the rest of us. So
Here we go.
Oh, what's that?
Oh, I said you really believe that we've been to the moon that many times, 9 times? Or is this...
Well, so watch. So if you think we haven't been to the moon, then you have to realize that we haven't been to the moon 9 times, okay? Because the Apollo rocket launched 9 times, okay? So to the moon. So you'd have to say that we faked the moon landing 9 times.
Yeah.
That's how many times we didn't go to the moon. But here's might be a better thing to convince you, okay? If you one day learned that NASA, we were behind the Russians, and we had to catch up and we didn't know what to do. So we went to Hollywood, knocked on their door.
Right.
Said, can you help us? We need to fake the moon landing so we can keep our integrity in this world. And Hollywood, they studied, the special effects people studied the problem carefully. And they said, we could do it, but the best results would be if we filmed it on location.
Interesting.
So then we made it to the moon. So
Just saying.
I wanted to quick show you. I don't know if he can see me. Can you see me, guys?
I do. I can see you.
I'm holding up your book. I've been such a big
I
fan
recognize that book.
for so long. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Astrophysicist, Physics for People in a Hurry. I've been a fan for a very long time, and as you heard, I even named my company Milky Way Tech Hub because I love all things space time, and so I would love to hear from you, someone who's so knowledgeable about this topic. What is the most astonishing fact about the universe, in your personal opinion? What has blown your mind?
Yeah. Well, first, we also have our minds blown once a week. Okay, there's plenty out there to accomplish that. So, for me, the most astonishing fact, I was once asked that by Newsweek magazine in my office, and I answered it. And it's one of my most highly viewed videos. And it's been reposted. It's been videographers have put beautiful imagery behind it. And I'll give you a short version of it, but I invite people to find it on YouTube. The most astonishing fact. It's very simple. It's the realization by the efforts of 20th century astrophysicists, one generation before me, who, on studying stars and what's happening in their core, realizing that stars are fusing light elements into heavy elements, fusing hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, nitrogen, oxygen. And these other elements, which the star was not born with, are the elements, the fundamental ingredients of life, life as we know it. Those stars also happen to explode in death, scattering that enrichment across the galaxy, all galaxies, and yes, the Milky Way galaxy. So subsequent generations of stars are born with the ingredients that can make planets, on which are the ingredients that can make life. So it's not simply that we are alive in this universe looking up to it. The universe, by virtue of these ingredients, is alive within us. It's not just figuratively true, it is literally true that we are stardust. And for me, that scientific discovery borders on the spiritual. And I think it's the greatest gift of modern astrophysics to civilization, giving us a sense of meaning and belonging to what might otherwise come across as a cold and indifferent universe.
Now, I want to ask this question. Is melanin connected to everything in the universe? They say melanin is something that is in almost everything.
Did you get that on the internet?
That's what, hey, I'm talking about when I see that, when I see certain things.
Rabbit hole going on.
I'm just asking.
Okay, so no, it's a perfectly sensible question.
Because you said stardust and they triggered that, yeah.
Yeah, there's a community of people who one might call Afrocentrists. Their goals were noble. It was to sort of correct the history books written by white Europeans about all that mattered in the history of civilization. And in the European writings, you would never know, for example, that because they don't speak of it that way, that Egypt, one of the greatest civilizations, ancient Egypt, that the world has ever seen, with a pyramid that we didn't build anything taller than the pyramid that was stable until the Eiffel Tower in the 1800s, okay? If you read, you would never even know that Egypt was in Africa, okay? So Afrocentrists are trying to put Africa back on the map. In so doing, some of them have overstepped, and they're not bringing the proper biochemistry, physics, and so some have claimed that the melanin in the skin of people with dark skin, as you may already know, it absorbs sunlight, preventing ultraviolet, preventing that ultraviolet from rendering carcinogenic cells in your epidermis, okay? So the incidence of skin cancer from sunlight are 25 times higher among white people than among black people.
Damn.
And it's a curious fact because I've been around many white people where they're passing around the suntan lotion and I just reject it. They say, oh, you're just as susceptible as we are. No, we're not.
Sorry.
Okay? Now, don't be
you
so
put that evil
complacent
on me, Ricky Bobby.
Don't be so complacent that you might miss, something weird on your skin. Yes, get it checked out. All I'm saying is that melanin is the protective force in that.
Gotcha.
And the people with no melanin, like people with red hair, blue eyes, and freckles, they can't spend minutes in the sun without their skin feeling the effects. So the fact that it absorbs sunlight is not one and the same as somehow being connected with the rest of the universe.
Okay.
So
That's all. The white people, they absorb sunlight too. The difference is it gives them cancer.
Right. So when we even talking about, the universe, Neil, again, like you had said before, and one of the things you're going to touch on tonight when you do hit the Riverside Theater, make sure that you guys do go to the Riverside Theater to go see Dr. Neil Degrasse Tyson. Nadia Johnson will be in the building with you, Dr. Neil Degrasse Tyson. But I want to ask you, when it comes down to all these different sightings we've been seeing when we talk about the UFOs and the UAPs, are these aliens real, bro? Are the aliens real? They seem to be coming in and out the Atlantic Ocean whenever they feel like.
Okay, I mean, they might be real, but as a scientist, we demand a higher level of evidence than fuzzy photos or people testifying in front of Congress after they've pinky sweared that they're telling the truth. That eyewitness testimony does not, however it is viewed in the court of law, in the court of science, it is the lowest form of evidence you can bring. It is so low, if that's all you have entering a conference session, we leave you at the door. You're not even invited in. Show me better data than that. That's my first point. Second, the UAP, which stands for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon, was a rebranding of UFOs by the federal government. I think they tried to reduce the giggle factor there. Fine. They're talking about exactly the same thing, except the anomalous phenomenon, according to the military definition, includes anything that could be happening in the oceans as well. Whereas UFO, F means flying. But still, they're talking about something you see and you don't know what it is. Fine. I don't have a problem with that. Keep checking it. Keep looking. And remember that video that the Navy pilots, there's a little thing moving and in the screen, it looked like a little tic-tac. That was the tic-tac alien. Okay. Consider, you have seen, we only just met, but I know you have seen images from the James Webb Space Telescope
JWT.
Of gorgeous gas clouds across the galaxy, thousands of light years away, in exquisite detail. How is it that we, the astrophysics community, we look up all the time and we produce these brilliantly high quality, high resolution images, but the best pictures you're giving me of an alien is a monochromatic, fuzzy tic-tac in restricted naval airspace in our own atmosphere? If that's the best picture you can take, I can't, I'm sorry.
You're making
Go out
points.
and come back with something better.
You're making points.
And there's at any moment, there's 1 million people airborne with a window sitting right next to them, and everybody's got a smartphone. And so if we were being invaded, that fact would be crowdsourced by those 1 million people who are looking out their window of their airplane. So
you know what,
maybe
Neil?
all these sightings are aliens.
You know what?
I'm just surprised nobody has a high resolution picture of an alien sort of walking towards you. That would go viral immediately. Cat videos go viral.
That's all I'm saying. You just hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, Neil, because like you said, I mean, when it comes down to these UAPs, somebody...
You're saying I nailed it?
Yeah, for sure. But you know what, Neil? If you wouldn't mind, hold on for a brief moment, because we have to take an intermission. We have to take a break. Got to get these bills paid for a moment. So if you wouldn't mind just holding on with us for a moment.
I can chill. Don't worry about it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hey, look, when we come back, we'll have more conversation
with Neil
Truth
deGrasse
Nation.
Tyson.
Stay locked in right here on Tory Lowe.
Don't touch that dial. The Tory Lowe Show will be right back on 1017 The Truth, The Truth app, and 1017thetruth.com.
1017 The Truth. Tory Lowe. Tory Lowe Show live from American Family Insurance Studio at the Avenue. The movement continues. The marathon continues right here on 1017 The Truth. Thank you for joining me for the second hour of the Tory Lowe Show. And we're going to keep Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson over for a segment. Benjamin, what's going on? What's happening in?
Oh man, this is amazing. This is amazing. I just love how the universe comes together. Okay, no pun intended. We have Milky Way Tech Hub in the building.
Milky Way Tech Hub.
Yes. We have Dr. Neil Degrasse Tyson on the line. And I mean, honestly, the blurredness in me is just gushing right now. Okay, because I love to go down the rabbit hole. I really do. I really do. So with that being said, Neil Degrasse Tyson, I have a question I have to ask you, because this is another thing that came out in recent news, maybe about 2 months ago. You had mentioned something about the Egyptian pyramids. Well, about 2 months ago, Neil, and I'm pretty sure you know where I'm going, they went on to go say that they found about 4 different pillars sitting underneath the pyramids, which would actually, or some people would say, it kind of proves the notion that the Egyptian pyramids were actually a power plant, so to speak, at one point in time. Does that ring a bell for you at all?
No.
Hey.
Let me remind you, by the way, there are people who said like the pyramids were built by aliens or whatever, or advanced, even in a movie, and I'm resistant to that sentiment. Of course I would be, but that doesn't change the fact that I happen to like the movie Stargate, which is built on the premise that Egyptians came through a portal from an alien civilization and aliens built it. The point, here's something to consider.
Okay.
I'm thinking if aliens came to Earth and they directed operations or power plants, whatever, we would have artifacts a little more sophisticated than rocks, okay? Or bricks, all right? The pyramid is made of bricks, not unobtainium or some element that we've never seen here on Earth. So to anyone who's denying the brilliance of those who made it, who were local and Egyptian and of the continent, is in denial of how ingenious the human mind can be, especially with great desire to build a civilization that was built. In terms of a power plant, there was no electricity back then. No one harnessed it yet. We have very good evidence of that. And in other words, if they did, we know what else they could have done. But to build the pyramids, it just takes time and people, okay?
But Neil,
way longer than it takes anything to build today. So I'm cool with everything we have established about what is true with those pyramids.
But Neil, when we've been thinking about the idea of electricity, right? We have, here in the 21st century, right? A lot of the times when we're thinking about how electricity is conducted, we use nuclear energy to give us this electricity that we use in today's time, especially here in Wisconsin. We all use we energies, right? But at the same time, there's other ways that somebody can go about inventing electricity or using and harnessing the world's energy out there. I mean, Nikola Tesla,
right, but you have to know that that's a harnessable resource, and that was not known until basically the writings of Benjamin Franklin.
Okay,
he has a book called Experimental Researches into Electricity. He was famous across Europe not for being a founding father of the colonies of the new United States of America, but for his work as a scientist.
Gotcha.
He was the toast of the town for that research. Then when you know that electricity is a thing, then you start doing experiments with it, and experiments has to be a thing that you do. That would come way later than the pyramids, all right? Modern science as we know it is not that old.
Right.
And so that's why civilization we've gone from horse and buggy to moon landings within 60 years.
Interesting.
That's only possible because of the methods and tools of science, technology, engineering, and math. And so, you can generate energy any one of, a dozen ways that we can just list off the top of our head.
Gotcha.
But you got to know what you're doing with it. And in the end, you're creating electricity that goes over wires into your appliance.
Well, I got a question, Doctor.
Bring it on.
There's a guy named Moses West, and he's going around generating water from air. And how come this is not, his invention is not being incorporated in our daily lives?
Well, pure air does not contain the ingredients to make water. So pure air is mostly nitrogen. In a molecular form, N2 it's called, and that is 78% nitrogen. It's 20% between 20 and 21% oxygen in the form of O2, and there's 1% other things, including the greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, a little bit of methane, depending on where you are in the world, especially around farms and decomposing permafrost from life forms that have decomposed anaerobically and are releasing methane. Very big greenhouse gas. Point is, if he's pulling water out of the air, the water he's getting is the water that's already there.
Right.
The humidity that's already there. Not a problem with that. By the way, you do that every single time you put ice in a glass, pour some liquid that you're going to drink, and moisture beads up on the outside of the glass. When I was a kid, I was mystified by this because I said to myself, is the water passing through the glass from the inside? And I did some experiments. I say, no, it must be getting it from the atmosphere. That's the humidity of the atmosphere. So fine. If he's succeeding in doing that, he is taking the moisture out of the air. So, by the way, you see this on air conditioners that drip. Okay,
Right.
the dripping
Right. Oh, that
out of
makes
air
sense.
conditioners
That's
is
right.
the air condensing from the moisture, the moisture condensing from the humid air on the coils, and then the coils melt out and it drips down on the sidewalk. So, okay, so what's he going to do about it? What's he doing with it?
Right.
This is
Interesting.
So now I would love to switch gears just a little bit and talk about the Big Bang Theory. Okay.
the
You know
TV
some-
show or
No.
the origin of the universe?
No, not the TV show. But there are some people who.
By the way, if you type into Google search Big
bet.
Bang Theory, the first thing that comes up is
It's a
the TV
TV
show.
show, yeah,
And
I
I don't know
believe
if I
that.
should be happy or sad by that fact.
I'm sad about that. But let's talk about it. So the Big Bang Theory, there are people who believe in the Big Bang Theory and there are others who absolutely do not. And so for those who don't necessarily believe in the Big Bang Theory, how do you answer the question, if the Big Bang Theory actually happened, then what initiated it? Because I'm a believer that anything that begins to exist has a cause. What are your thoughts?
So, are you a very strong believer in that? No. The reason why I ask, no, it's a very serious question. The reason why I ask is before we had more developed ideas regarding a multiverse, the question of what was around before the Big Bang, we don't have a good answer for that. And so I'd be in a conversation with someone, and they'd say. And I say, well, we have top people working on it. Well, something had to be there. I said, we don't know. God would have been it. And I said, well, okay. Then who created God? And they just say God always was. And they're content with that answer. But if I told you the universe always was, I don't know if you'd be content with that answer. But somehow, theologically, people are content with God having always existed as the prime mover. So I'm saying as a scientist, to quote a poem by the German poet Rainer Maria Rilke, to quote part of the poem, the scientist on the frontier needs to learn to love the questions themselves. Because at any given moment, a question on the frontier does not have an answer. That's why we're working on the frontier. So I'm going to say at the beginning of time, we are working on that. Right now, our universe might be one bubble of many bubbles that are punched out in what we call a multiverse. But that just moves the question farther back. Right. What created the multiverse? And so origin stories are some of the more challenging questions to answer scientifically, especially if only a single thing was created from that origin. And back when people thought Earth was unique in the universe, the only account we had of the formation of the Earth was biblical Genesis. And then we look around with telescopes when they get invented. We say, wait a minute, we see stars being born, and there are these things orbiting those. Oh, those are planets. Oh, that must be how we formed, because we're orbiting an ordinary star just like that one in our telescope.
Right.
And so in the case of the origin of the planets and of stars, we have other examples of it to compare with. When the thing is singular, it's just a much harder question to address.
Let me ask you this question, Neil. Because again, as we are talking about space and all these other things, I have a question for you. Last time you were here, we actually talked about the idea and concept of time travel. And I want to say, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that you said that Interstellar was the movie was one of the movies that kind of had got it right, the idea of time traveling. Well, now and I'm pretty certain that he's a colleague of yours, or you may know of him, but a gentleman, and I'm going to chop his name up. I'm so sorry about this, but Michio Kaku.
Michio Kaku.
There we go, Michio Kaku. He goes on to say that time travel is now simply an engineering problem. Do you agree with that?
Time travel. You can time travel on paper. We have the equations that will enable you to do that, but you need a configuration of matter that we don't yet know how to create. You need something that has negative gravity that we then wield and control. So when you do that, you can pry open holes in the universe. Think of a black hole, which has sort of positive gravity, all right? It brings everything in. If we had a substance that had negative gravity and you put it in the equations, you can create a structure in the fabric of space-time where there are paths through that where you can end up going backwards in time and forwards in time. So in that sense, Michio Kaku is correct. It's just a matter of building that, but we would need a substance that does not yet exist and may never exist.
That's
so in that sense, he's overstepping a little, but he's still fundamentally correct. But it's not like, just a few years before we have an electric car or a combustion engine. No, it's not that kind of, it's just engineering problem. No.
See, and I'm not gonna lie to you, Neil, because I consider myself to be a futurist, and I don't necessarily say that we can travel back in time.
Wait, are you an Afrofuturist?
Ooh,
that's a thing.
I'm an Afrofuturist. I am an Afrofuturist.
His beard.
The early Afrofuturists, there've been many, but George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, Afrofuturist. His album, what was it? Mothership Connection. All right, he's stepping out of a flying saucer. There's a lot of this. This goes back. So you are in a very proud tradition.
Oh, thank you so much.
Afrocentrist.
No, thank you so much, because I have this.
Afrofuturist.
Afrofuturist. I have this idea and concept, Neil, and I truly believe that we are inventing, so to speak, the vehicle that we're going to use to do time travel. I think us having all these recordings and things like that one day somehow some computer will be saving all of this data, and virtual reality or augmented reality wise, we'll be able to go back and forth through time. Have you ever thought about that concept before?
Well, so what do you think the film Total Recall was about? And that goes back, was it to the 80s even, or 90s? Total Recall, instead of paying to go on a vacation, you sit in a chair and I don't remember how they did it precisely, inject you or put some module on your head, and your brain goes on a vacation. And you can go to Acapulco, you can go to India, you can go to Africa, and then you're done.
Kind of like
it's way cheaper than an actual vacation, and you have all the same memories you would have had otherwise. So if you're only talking about what your brain is going to do, it's possible that in the future we can just send your brain on these trips, either forward or backwards in time, informed by all of our written and oral knowledge of what that was and might be. And then you can have, you as they say, you'll be tripping. Okay.
Wow.
You are so crazy, Neil.
We got some talk to text. We got some people in the chat that want to ask a question.
Bring them on. Don't leave them out there hanging.
Not really. A city girl says, "Can you ask Neil if he could instantly teach every human on Earth one specific concept or truth? What would it be and why?"
Oh, two things. If they allow me, two things. One of them is that the universe is knowable. Okay. That's an important, dare I call that a revelation of science? It didn't have to be that way. Every part of the universe could have had different laws operating there, but the laws of physics we derive in a laboratory, based on all the experiments we conducted, tell us that they apply across the universe and across time. So the universe is knowable, A. B, I would encourage people
That sounds
to
like the Kashi
retain.
records.
Okay. Well, no. Well, that implies that all that knowledge is there, and I'm not convinced of that. Okay. At that time, and plus today we have the internet.
Energy can't
which
be
is,
created nor destroyed, Neil.
well, yeah. Well, you can turn energy into matter, and in that way you can destroy it.
I think that's just another form, though, isn't it?
Oh, wow.
It's another form of
Yeah, it
matter.
changes form. It changes
I
form.
appreciate
That's
a
correct.
new response for that. Thank you, Neil.
Good stuff.
Logged
man.
away.
What you have to say is the combination of energy and matter
Right.
is a constant, as far as we know, as far as we have measured. So my point is, if the universe is knowable, and if you retain the curiosity you once had as a child, long into adulthood, then you will be a truth seeker of all that is objectively true in the world.
Right.
And with the knowledge that the universe is knowable, it means unsolved problems will beckon for your attention so that they can succumb to your curiosity. And when you make those discoveries, you will stand on a new vista, looking out into the great beyond,
Right.
asking questions that today cannot even be imagined because we're not standing in the place where those questions manifest themselves.
Well, let me ask you this then, Neil, because we do have Nadia Johnson in here, the CEO and founder of the Milky Way Tech Hub. And we were talking about these ideas that we can't possibly fathom. AI can fathom these ideas, correct? What do you think the future of AI is going to lead all of humanity? Do you think we're going to one day just be infused with it? Will we be cyborgs one day and we'll all...
Yes. What are your thoughts on AI? Do you use AI a lot, Neil?
We've used AI in my field ever since it was possible to use it. Anything that'll make our jobs easier, we're going to use it because then we can invest our time, energy, emotion into other things that the computing power has yet to reach. So the real question is, what happens in the day when we have nothing left to do? Well, will that really happen? And here's where I think is the line in the sand between being human and being AI. AI, because we have built this thing called the internet, where all books have been loaded, because we have built it, that is the source of all the knowledge, wisdom, and insight ingested by AI. But if you take a walk on a beach and you discover a new mollusk, a new shell of some kind, and you pick it up, and you say, wow, this is not in any catalog. This is not in any book. AI doesn't know that yet. AI wasn't taking the walk on the beach. AI doesn't know what is not yet discovered. It is completely clueless because it is founded on the knowledge that we've already provided it. Now, it doesn't mean clever AI can't find new solutions to problems that we didn't figure out. It's been doing that for a long time. One of the fun ones that I remember is, you ever see a juggler juggle? You can juggle balls in a circle, or you can sort of pass one across the other, 3 balls. And you handed the juggling challenge to AI, and it found another mode of juggling that no one thought of before. That was cool, okay? And it finds ways of winning at games that our mere human minds haven't figured out.
Got you.
But when it comes time to discovering something that has never been known before, I don't see AI crossing that line. And think about it. You can show AI a picture of all of us on this screen. I know many people are hearing this just audio, but if the 4 of us are like Brady Bunch style on a screen right now. And if you handed that to AI and said, paint this scene in the style of Van Gogh, it will come back with a perfectly rendered thing that's how Van Gogh would have painted it. It did a better job than any of us would have done when given the same task. But if you then say, paint this scene in a manner in which no artist has ever represented it before, AI's got nothing. Well, it might come up with something, but that doesn't mean it'll be good.
Because
I
see what you're saying, Neil, because at the end of the day, AI operates off of a particular data set.
Correct.
It only knows
correct.
The data that
and like I said, it can solve problems that are not in the data set. But to discover something, would AI have discovered the theory of general relativity? I don't think so. It's not because I don't want it to. Just that based on how it's constructed today,
That was
I don't see
Einstein.
that happening.
Right. Well,
It doesn't have the spark of innovation that we get just walking barefoot in the sand, sitting on the toilet, looking up in a rainstorm.
So you're saying the
Things
spark
that-
of innovation is what separates us from the robots.
Well, you know what,
There it
Neil?
is.
You know what, Neil? Let me ask you this question because
Thanks for saying in one sentence what I tried to say in 10 minutes there. Okay.
I'm good at that. I'm good for that.
Right, good summing it up. I mean, that's
And we got some.
right there.
I got some questions in the chat.
Man, the chat is really going crazy
They do
right
have
now.
some
They
questions
got
for
some
you.
Bring the chat in. I'm tired of hearing you guys. Bring in your
That's
people.
what I'm saying. The chat, like y'all hogging up all the questions. The chat getting upset. Okay, so this is what they got to say in the chat. RC says, "Why is space not streaming with life? Why is the Earth loaded with life? Evolution is the ability to adapt. Space should be highly populated."
It might be. In our catalogs, like I think I said earlier, we're rising through nearly 6,000 exoplanets, planets orbiting other stars. We're right now looking for life on them.
Right.
And those 6,000 planets, if you look at a map of the whole Milky Way galaxy, it's self-containing hundreds of billions of stars. Those exoplanets occupy a tiny little circle, a tiny little sphere around the sun. So we've barely scratched the surface. The Milky Way might be teeming with life. We don't know it yet.
And also, we got a question. Please ask Neil about this week's announcement that Russia has tracked what happens to the human soul when you die. They say our souls go to a planet 1 billion light years away. This is Eddie.
One of them trillion.
Hi, Eddie. You got that on the internet too.
How do you say it like that?
Yeah,
Eddie?
you and Ben Jammin are looking all the same websites there.
On the same blog.
Hey.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's no other than the emotions that people express and the religions that say much about it. There's otherwise no evidence that you have a soul or anything happens to you at death, other than you are immolated in a crematorium or you are decomposed as flora and fauna dine upon you in the earth. By the way, when X-rays were discovered back 125 years ago, its medical applications were instantly obvious. All right, you can see bones through your flesh, so it immediately was absorbed up into hospitals. But with it in the hospitals, people wondered, if you know a person's about to die, why don't we X-ray them while they're dying and see if you can see anything rising up out of their body?
Right.
And I'm thinking, great, that's how you need to think as a scientist if you have a hypothesis and you want to test if it's true. So all the dead bodies, they went and looked at it, and no, nothing rose up out of the body.
I thought that
so
was
if
the
souls
Tesla.
are,
They
if
said that
souls
the
are coming out
Tesla
of your
screen
body,
was getting the dead bodies on the Tesla screen. You heard about that one.
yeah. So any claim that not only is the soul real, but the Russians found a planet where they're all going, becomes less and less credulous the more you drive down that path.
Well, let me ask you this question, Neil, because we do have
No, go back to your people online.
That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing.
Hold on,
I got you, bro.
Well, I got one question. They said that. Okay, I'll
You
say
want to
this
actually go ahead, bro?
because this is he want to grab a chat question.
Yeah.
They said that when are you going to have a debate with Terrence Howard?
I'd rather you have a debate with me, Neil.
Hey. This is what you wanted to hear what
Let
the
me
chat.
shoot my shot. Not
This is what the
Terrence.
chat wanted to
Okay,
know.
so I have said my piece regarding Terrence
Right,
Howard.
he did.
It is online. It is very findable, and I'm impressed that in fact it has more views than the original Joe Rogan episode where he called me out regarding his ideas that the whole history of mathematics is wrong and he is correct. See, that's where he's coming from. I don't debate people because that implies that the person with the most charisma and the best vocabulary and that's the person whose ideas are correct. So I have no interest ever in debating anyone ever. And there's an old saying: if an argument lasts more than 5 minutes, then both sides are wrong. It's not always true, but it's an interesting guiding.
That is
force.
interesting.
So yeah, I just have I don't debate people.
That's interesting, Neil. Now I have another person on the YouTube chat board. They're going to say,
Are you sure it's not you faking your question in on the board?
It's giving
this is the question I would ask because it takes me down my rabbit hole, Neil. But it goes on to say, Neil, do you think that the universe evolved to make us conscious, or did consciousness evolve to help the universe?
Ooh. So a related statement would be the humans are a way for the universe to know itself.
Ooh.
Okay? Because we have this, it's not just consciousness, but intellect. No one would deny, anyone who owns dogs or cats would deny that they have a consciousness, all right? So we're not unique in the world where we have conscious or even subconscious thoughts. So the thing is, your consciousness, if you've ever been around someone aging who's suffered a series of small strokes, bit by bit, their identity goes away. First, they, in whatever sequence, they can't speak anymore. They don't recognize you. They don't know. They have to be retaught how to do things.
Right.
And ultimately, some final stroke takes them out. But while they're descending, they're losing their consciousness. So to say your consciousness is a thing, and when you die, it goes somewhere else, and it lands somewhere, much the same way people describe your soul. Right. It's a thing. No, as all evidence shows, that it's electrochemical synaptic process in your brain, and when those processes cease, when there's no longer oxygen going through your brain and the cells die, it takes your consciousness with it. And your consciousness, so don't overvalue the role of your consciousness in the existence of the universe.
Neil, are you researching anything right now? Of course you are.
No, not as. So I have ideas to pick up when so here's my fantasy, however delusional this fantasy is. Okay, when I visit cities, I'm responding to their curiosity, and I do it because I can. And I have colleagues who are a little bit on the spectrum. It wouldn't work for them, but they're in the lab. And that's where I want to be. Right. But if I didn't do what I'm doing, I almost feel like I'd be irresponsible. If I have the ability to reach thousands of people at a stretch, at a pop, and then I choose not to. But I can tell you this, my hope, I don't like hoping, because that means you want an outcome that you don't control what leads to it. I foresee the day where there are enough other people online bringing science to you, and there are many there right now, by the way. There's enough of them so that I'm just kind of in the mix. And then I step backwards, exit the rear door, go to my lab, and no one notices. Because the richness of science being delivered has hit such a high level. And then I go back to the lab and pick up my research projects that I've had in mind. That's my possibly delusional plan for the rest of my life.
I like it.
Also, one last question. Is God, the theory of God, in not theory, but the belief in God in science, most people who believe in science tend to not believe in God, and most people who believe in God tend to not put science in a high space.
So what you said is not entirely true. So let me clarify. So the black church, historically in America, however evangelical they have never been the people knocking on the science classroom trying to tell them that might not necessarily be right and you should teach biblical Genesis as science. The black religious community in the United States has never done that I have ever seen. It tends to be the white community, the orthodox, not orthodox, what's the word, devout, the far left Christian, there's a word for them. What do we call them?
Evangelicals.
The evangelicals, they who treat the Bible as the word of God and the unerring truth,
right?
Which means if a scientific result arises that differs from it, they will reject the science in favor of the religion. Well, you get to do that in a country that protects the free expression of religion. It just means you'll never be a scientist and contribute to the advancing frontier of our knowledge of the physical universe. That's fine. In a free society, no one should force you to do anything. Where I said you were not entirely correct is that most scientists, more than 50% of scientists, will claim a personal God to whom they pray. With scientists as a group. That is way less than the general population in the United States, which is up above 80%. That used to be higher, by the way, up in the 90s. That's dropped to around 80 in favor of people who identify with just simply being spiritual, and they don't associate themselves with organized religion. That's what's been dropping over the years, the participation in organized religions.
Wow.
So those scientists, however, do not run around saying, those that I'm referring to, who are active scientists on the frontier, are not saying the universe is 10,000 years old, created in 6 days. They're more likely to, as recent popes of the Catholic Church have embraced, they're more likely to say things like, yes, of course, evolution is true, but at some point, the branch of great apes that would become humans was infused with a soul by the Spirit of God, and that would then become human. So that's their way of conjoining a religious worldview with the science.
That's interesting.
Because science is what gives us the civilization that we know and usually love about what it is to live in modern times. So being a scientist is not one and the same thing as being an atheist. And so I just want to just make that clear.
Right.
Right. Well, you know what?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Reply to that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil Neil deGrasse Tyson, for joining us today.
Yes.
I mean, this has actually been an amazing conversation.
Incredible.
Again,
Wasn't I only supposed to be on for 10 minutes?
It was also supposed to be 10, but you know how it goes, man. When the universe aligns,
You all just
that's what it
blabbing
is.
away, and I'm trying to get out of here, and now I'm late.
It's all good, man. Make sure
is
that you guys
wonderful.
go down to the Riverside Theater tonight to go see Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson perform. He will be talking about any and everything that just came in to the universe out there in the news, whether it's aliens, whether it's what's going to happen with the universe in the next coming years. He'll be talking about all those things. But the one last question I do have for you, Neil, and we're talking about, the idea. We talk about the idea of the multiverse and parallel universes. I want to know, Neil, in real time today, since it is Nadia Johnson's birthday, and she is going to attend your event tonight, would you be able to autograph her book for her?
Are you her spokesperson?
Well, I'm a good friend.
Oh, wow.
She got a
I'm
mouth.
friend, and I do have it, and I've been a big fan forever, and it's my birthday.
Okay. I will do it if she asks me, not if you ask. They got nothing to do with you.
Will you
Closed
please sign
mouth
my
don't
book,
get fed.
Dr.
Hey.
Tyson?
Delighted to. I'm honored and delighted. I'd
Very
be happy
cool.
to
Okay,
sign
we'll
it.
find you this evening.
Very cool. My people
Yes.
link with your people.
Thank you
Exactly.
so much.
That's all good. Thank you so much, Dr. Tyson, for calling in today.
Thank you
All right,
so
stay
much.
strong
We
out there.
appreciate you. When you come back around, come back on.
Yeah, and then
Thanks for remembering me.
Yeah, no problem, man. And I mean, really, you've impacted all of our lives. You've impacted the blurs in us, and then truthfully, I mean, we're only about 2 minutes away from where your event is taking place at tonight. So we will see
Okay.
you tonight.
You will see.
Can I slip something in real quick? You have like 2 minutes?
Go right ahead.
Go ahead.
It's real quick.
Okay.
Okay. I gave a talk in Southern Georgia
Okay.
one time, and in the Q&A, there's like a VIP Q&A at the end. A guy stands up. I gave him one of my movie talks where I showed the scene from Back to the Future where Marty lands in Farmer Peabody's ranch, and Peabody chases after him with a shotgun, and one of the shots hits the Peabody mailbox, and the mailbox just explodes as he escapes safely. The guy raised his hand and said, "Hi, you have a question?" He says, "Yeah, I wanted to comment on a statement you made about the movie Back to the Future." I said, "Oh, did I get something wrong?" He says, "No. I'm a nerd redneck."
A redneck
What?
nerd.
Self-identified.
Oh, wow.
Hear this out, okay? I'm a nerd redneck, and so there's something I want to tell you about that scene. And I said, bring it on. And he said that the shotgun they used, the size of the pellets, was already revealed in a previous shot that punched a bunch of holes in the barn door. And light beams came through, Steven Spielberg style. So you can see what it did. He said that shotgun would not have just blown apart the mailbox. It would have just put holes in the mailbox. And I'm thinking, that's a nerd redneck comment to make. And then I said, have you heard of blurs? And he said, no. I said, well, those are black nerds. So we need a word for you. Okay? Wow. So we spent a minute, and I said, how about nerd necks?
Nerd necks.
And he said, fine. And so on that day was born the term nerd necks. And I looked online. There's whole websites there's one called Hillbilly Engineering and Redneck Engineering. And I thought to myself, this is a community of people who, if they associate with being a nerd at all,
right,
it means objective truths matter to them. In the part of the world that they are experts in, the truth matters. That's why he wanted to add that information about it. And so deep in the bayous, we have a kindred spirits of people who will care about objective truths. And it may be that at the end of the day, the nerds have to rise up and take back the country.
Nerds gonna have to rise up. Okay.
No, man, you're right.
And you know that passage in the Bible? And the passage in the Bible, and the geek shall, it says, and the meek shall inherit the earth. It's been rumored that was mistranslated, and it should have been, and the geek shall inherit the earth.
Oh, wow.
Maybe.
Geek Squad.
Maybe.
No, it seems like it, man. We got Elon Musk running the world. We got Bill Gates and everybody else in tech running the world. So I think you're right with that, Neil. Seriously. Mm-hmm. But thank you so much for calling in, man. And we definitely got to come out and see you tonight. If you guys don't know, Truth Nation, make certain that you hit the Riverside Theater tonight to go see Dr. Neil Degrasse Tyson. He will talk about everything that just in news, from aliens to the expansions of the universe to all these brand new discoveries.
All of that.
Yeah, all of that. So
if somebody teach this man how long 10 minutes is, just for the next time.
I tried to over the last year.
We tried to.
And Neil, in a separate parallel universe, 10 minutes might equate to 3 days.
That's not going to get you out of this one.
All right,
we
Doctor.
appreciate you.
All right, Doctor. Thank you for joining the show.
All right.
Have a great time tonight. Hey, look, when we come back, Truth Nation, we'll have more conversation. Stay locked in right here on Tory Lowe.
Don't touch that dial. The Tory Lowe Show will be right back.